What does history tell us? Is there any historical evidence of the acting of the Brotherhood on earth? Historical examples, supported by biographies, would seem to prove the existence of the Brotherhood in different ages. There are countless examples of this. Let us start with three, which have been common good of mankind since the most ancient times. The 10 Commandments were given to Moses. The Archangel Gabriel announced the birth of Christ to Mary and gave the Quran to Mohammed. For immemorial ages, the Divine Son has spoken from time to time to those who have evolved to the point where they were capable of hearing his voice and interpreting his language. Lesser spirits than these highest ones have received messages from Shambhala in the form of prophecies. Only think of the prophets of the Old Testament or of Nostradamus. Since time immemorial, prophecies have been issued from our community as benevolent signs for humanity. The paths of prophecies are diverse. Either they are suggested to special people, or there may be writings left by some unknown hands. There are certain personalities who can foresee the direction of evolution. Such co-workers of ours can be found in different countries and ages. We use them as channels through which we transmit the varying degrees of aspiration that correspond to the needs of evolution. Others, for example many saints, were honored with visions, however not from God, but from the world government. Historic acts of great significance were often carried out in accordance with directions given in visions. The invisible government has pronounced its decisions more often than people suspect. The higher beings, or departed relatives, bring the message of imminent dates. You yourselves already know of an entire succession of historic events which were based on warnings and indications. Thus one can note a series of events from antiquity to our days, which were seemingly links of one guiding thought. It is right to collect these fiery revelations. In them will be disclosed an entire interworld system. One must probe historical facts deeply, in order still more consciously to understand the wisdom of the construction. I advise the recording of all known historic events that took place under the influence or were associated with higher visions. The international world government itself regularly intervenes in human history, insofar as the law allows. The international government has proclaimed itself not in manifestos, but in actions that were recorded even in official history. One can cite cases from the French and Russian revolutions, as well as from the history of Anglo-Russian and Anglo-Indian relations, when an independent outside hand altered the course of events. The existence of this government has entered the consciousness of humanity repeatedly under various names. Our envoy once urged a queen to act more in accord with the laws of the time. Our envoy has counseled a young inventor. Our envoy guided a promising scholar. A list can be shown of persons who have received monetary sendings. These are all facts attested by physical documents. Why does this seem mystical and mysterious to some, when everyone has done the same thing in a lesser measure? Shambhala was familiar already to antiquity. Messengers were sent to the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, to the Byzantine Emperor Manuel, and to Genghis Khan. One can also find obscure hints concerning Shambhala in Western literature. After all, the legend of the Grail also originated in the East, and is actually one of the numerous versions of the very same Shambhala. The chronicles of the West have also recorded the receipt of news from the mysterious abode by Constantine the Great, and also by the Byzantine Emperor Manuel. Likewise, Genghis Khan received messages from the sage of the Great Mountain. In the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church received warnings and admonitions from the legendary priest King John. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the Western Christian Church, through its popes, was also aware of the existence of a mysterious spiritual abode and brotherhood in the heart of Asia, headed by the then famous Prester John, as this great spirit called himself. This Prester John, from time to time, sent admonishing and warning notes to the popes and other heads of the Church. According to historical records, one of the popes sent an embassy to Prester John in Central Asia. One can well imagine the purpose of such an embassy. And, of course, after diverse misfortunes and vicissitudes, this embassy returned, unable to find the spiritual citadel. Yet Prester John continued to send his admonishing notes. More recently, messages have been sent to the Swedish King Charles XII. Let us recall the Swedish King Charles XII, who received a strong warning not to start war with Russia, but he did, and that ended for long the development of his country. And before the French Revolution, to the French Queen, Marie Antoinette. The publishing of the diary of the Countess d'Ademar, a lady in waiting to the unfortunate Marie Antoinette, revealed the fact that many warnings had been given to the Queen. The warnings were transmitted either by letter or through personal meetings arranged by this same Countess. The messages always emphasized that the country, the royal family, and many friends were in danger. And every one of these warnings came from Count Saint-Germain, an envoy of the Himalayan Brotherhood. but all his salutary admonitions and advices were considered insulting and fraudulent. Saint-Germain was persecuted, and more than once was in danger of the Bastille. The tragic consequences of these rejections are quite well known. Instructions also went to Napoleon. We warned Napoleon more than once, and he admitted that he heard voices, yet he continued on his path of error. We may also recall Napoleon, who in the first years of his glory loved to speak of his guiding star, but his mind became clouded by too much success, and in his pride he did not accept the whole advice and violated one primary condition by invading Russia. The collapse of his armies and his sad end are also well known. And to George Washington. We also know that Washington was advised by a mysterious professor, whose counsel he applied in life with historic success. A particularly striking example is the support of the representatives of 13 American colonies declaring their independence from England in 1776. At the time of America's declaration of independence, when preparing to separate from England, a remarkable incident took place. During the proceedings at this historic convention, there came a moment of hesitation and uncertainty. Suddenly, a tall stranger stepped out from amid the assembly and delivered a fiery speech, which ended with the words, "Let America be free." The enthusiasm of the assembly was kindled, and the Declaration of Independence was signed. But when the delegates sought to greet the person who had helped them to make the great decision, the stranger had disappeared. Thus, through the whole of history is seen the helping hand of the great community of light. In our days, Helena Röhrig gave advice to the great American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who, by the way, had his country seat, today's Camp David, named Shangri-La. Finally, let us take a closer look at the three major initiatives of the Brotherhood over the past 150 years. At the turning point, from the Pisces to the Aquarian age, the Mahatmas appeared more forcefully and more conspicuously than ever before, and laid the spiritual foundation for a new era, for the next 2000 years of human development. At the end of the 19th century, the Mahatmas attempted to convey to mankind through the Russian Helena Blavatsky new knowledge, which had previously been imparted to her in an ashram in Tibet. Sometimes the Mahatmas call their disciples into one of their ashrams for a certain period. Here they prepare their organisms for the sacred assimilation of subtle energies and give them instructions. So it was with Helena Blavatsky, who spent 3 years in their ashram before giving the world the secret doctrine. Then she returned to the world with great knowledge and resplendent evidence regarding the Mahatmas. On the basis of these instructions, Madame Blavatsky wrote books such as The Secret Doctrine, Isis Unveiled, and The Voice of Silence. Whoever reads these books realizes, here, knowledge from a higher source is being revealed. She founded the Theosophical Society and labored until her death tirelessly, but under constant heavy attacks on the work of the Brotherhood. Definitely, of all the Theosophists, only Helena Blavatsky had the privilege of receiving the teaching directly from the great teachers in one of their ashrams in Tibet. She was the great spirit who accepted the bitter task of giving to humanity, lost in dead dogma and on its way to atheism, the impulse to study the great sacred doctrines of the East. At that time, almost all people overlooked in their self-conceit to their own detriment. Precisely, only through Helena Blavatsky was it possible to approach the White Brotherhood, as she was the link in the hierarchic chain. The writings of Madame Blavatsky represent a preliminary stage to the Agni Yoga teaching, which was handed down from 1920 onwards. It may be asked in what relation our teaching stands to the one already given by us through Blavatsky. Answer: that each century, after the manifestation of a detailed exposition, a conclusive culmination is given, which actually moves the world along the line of humaneness. Thus, our teaching includes the secret doctrine of Blavatsky. Similarly, Christianity was the culmination of the world wisdom of the classic epoch, and the commandments of Moses were the culmination of the wisdom of ancient Egypt and Babylon. In 1924, Madame Blavatsky herself was received into the Brotherhood of the Masters of Wisdom of Shambhala. No more than 1 or 2 in a century joined the White Brotherhood while still in their physical bodies. Thus, in 1924, our compatriot Helena Blavatsky joined them, in a male body of Hungarian nationality. Ridiculed, slandered, persecuted, she has taken her place among the saviors of humanity.